Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to build the foundational pattern recognition for peripheral nystagmus. And honestly, this is a critical skill for anyone who's assessing a dizzy patient.
And this isn't an overstatement at all. If you can read this one sign correctly, it can literally be the difference between diagnosing a benign vestibular neuritis and a potentially devastating posterior circulation stroke, using nothing more than your eyes.
Well, to get there, we really need to go back to basics. We've got to understand the brain's own internal stabilization system, this incredibly elegant piece of neural wiring that keeps our entire world stable.
Okay, first things first, let's really nail down why this skill is so crucial, especially in a high-pressure setting like the emergency department. So, a pretty significant number of patients who come in with dizziness are going to have nystagmus, but just spotting it, that's not the skill. The real clinical art, the thing that makes the difference, is in interpreting what it's telling you about the underlying pathology. You have to ask, is this just an inner ear problem, or is it a warning sign of something much more serious brewing in the brainstem?
All right, let's look at the blueprint for how our eyes stay locked on a target even when our head is moving all over the place. Think of it as the brain's internal Steadicam, the vestibulo-ocular reflex. The VOR, it's one of the fastest reflexes in the entire human body. I mean, it completes its circuit in about 16 milliseconds. That is way faster than conscious thought. It's basically the source code for our visual stability, the reason the world doesn't turn into a blurry mess every single time we turn our head.
And it all happens through this incredibly elegant and super efficient 3-neuron arc. It starts in the inner ear, zips over to the brainstem, and then sends this perfectly calibrated command right out to the eye muscles. It's just a simple, beautiful circuit.
So this diagram here shows you that normal balanced pathway, right? The signals from the semicircular canals keep the whole system perfectly stable. But what happens when there's a glitch in the system? What happens when one side starts sending a weaker signal than the other? Let's break that down. We're going to look at how a lesion just on one side of this system creates that involuntary rhythmic eye movement we call nystagmus. Okay. So when there's a lesion, let's say from something like vestibular neuritis on one side, the input from that ear is suddenly reduced. Now the brain has an asymmetry. It incorrectly thinks that the head is turning toward the healthy side, even if you're sitting perfectly still. And this perception mismatch, well, that's the root cause of nystagmus. Now, every nystagmus has two distinct parts. First, there's the slow phase. You need to remember this. The slow phase is the pathology. It's the eyes drifting off target, driven by that faulty vestibular signal, and it always points toward the side with the lesion. Then you have the fast phase. That's the brain's correction, a quick little saccade that snaps the eyes back to center. And just by convention, we name the nystagmus after this fast, corrective phase. So, here's the crucial clinical pearl you have to burn into your memory. If you document a right-beating nystagmus, what you're really describing is the fast phase beating to the right. But the lesion, the actual source of the problem, is on the left. So always watch the slow phase to find the lesion. Okay, with that foundation now in place, we can build ourselves a reliable 4-point checklist. This is the classic signature of a peripheral pattern, the one you absolutely need to recognize at the bedside. Right, here they are. These 4 features together, they form the quintessential signature of a peripheral lesion, like vestibular neuritis. First, it's direction fixed. It's always going to beat the same way. Second, it's usually a mix of horizontal and torsional movement. Third, it obeys Alexander's law. And fourth, and this is a big one, it suppresses with visual fixation. Let's just focus on Alexander's law for a second, because this is a powerful clue. This predictable behavior is so helpful. When the patient looks toward the fast-beating direction, the nystagmus gets stronger, more intense, and when they look away from it, it gets weaker. This is a key differentiator, because central nystagmus, it often just breaks this rule completely. And finally, fixation. This is so important. When a patient with a peripheral lesion focuses on your finger, that nystagmus should dramatically decrease, or even disappear completely. If it doesn't, if it just blasts right through their attempt to focus, you absolutely must suspect a central cause. That's a major red flag. So let's recap. These are the 4 pillars of the peripheral signature. It's direction fixed, it's mixed horizontal-torsional, it obeys Alexander's law, and it suppresses with fixation. If you see all 4 of these features, you're very likely dealing with a peripheral issue. But if even one is missing, you have to escalate your concern and start thinking about a central cause. Which, of course, leads us to the next logical question, right? What are those red flag patterns?
what happens when the nystagmus is purely vertical? Or what if it changes direction? Well, that leads us right into the focus of our next explainer, where we're going to walk through the decision tree that separates the benign from the potentially catastrophic.
We're going to explore all the patterns that demand urgent neuroimaging. Because as any clinician in an emergency setting knows, the cost of missing a brainstem stroke is just disproportionately higher than the cost of a negative MRI.
Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. To explore more resources on dizziness, vertigo, and imbalance for both clinicians and patients, please head over to our website. And hey, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this deep dive.